The other day, I was talking to my 20-year-old cousin, and while I was explaining to her what I do for a living, she goes, "You got some riz, no cap." Honestly, I think that's what she said. I'm never ever going to be sure. My 30 something self will not swallow her pride and ask, "What was that?" But curiosity got the better of me. And I did Google, like a millennial, what does riz and no cap mean? For those who care, my cousin basically said, "You got some charm, that's for sure." So it was a compliment, albeit in a language which sounded like English, but well, every generation has its own way of doing things, whether it's expressing themselves, their music, their clothes, their lifestyle, their idea of art, and of course, finance. Gen Z is aspirational. They're not limited by geographies. They're a generation who grew up with social media. Hence, their aspirations are the same as that of someone living anywhere else in the world. And how are they financing some of their materialistic aspirations? Yeah, you guessed it, by overspending. As of today, in India, we have an entire ecosystem of lending at our fingertips, which is enabling Gen Z to overspend and take that 0% EMI or use that BNPL feature, all while wages remain stagnant. Doom spending and loud budgeting, two diametrically opposite phenomena, are the terms which are shaping personal finance habits of Gen Z. And believe it or not, these phenomena took hold of the Zoomers via TikTok, an app which is not even available in India. Doom spending, in the simplest of terms, is continuing to spend money either on credit or with actual money to deal with stress. Loud budgeting is the exact opposite of doom spending, where a consumer will very loudly declare their financial goals to their peers, including declaring their limitations about spending on a particular occasion because they are working on a financial goal. Will loud budgeting help Gen Z combat their doom spending habits? Let's find out. It's Friday, 8th of March, and I'm Shobhari Das, and you are listening to Decoding Doom Spending and Loud Budgeting, only on The Morning Brief.
So, on an average, I think we save around 2k to 5k as a ballpark if I have to give.
I'm not comfortable taking loans for big purchases, especially when it comes to travel or gadgets like iPhones or phones in general. I'd rather pay in installments or through EMI. That is a more convenient option in case I do not have the funds immediately.
I'm actually not planning a lot for my retirement age right now because I'm not really sure that if I want to retire at all, because I don't want to compromise on my present just because there is a certain age after which I will not be working.
I do take up a lot of freelance gigs, especially when it comes to content. However, that's ad hoc.
I think every second person that I know is either doing a freelance gig or either collaborating or setting themselves as creator or something.
It's usually in the middle of the month, towards the end of the month, that I realize that I have gone overboard with my expenses. The point that hits me every time when I start doom spending randomly is when I start buying things that I may not necessarily need, but I just desire it or I just want it, and I mindlessly go for it. And after making that purchase or having received the order, I realized that it was actually not as necessary as I thought it was.
I'm very much comfortable telling my parents that I cannot afford something right now, or I am saving right now, or I am on a budget right now. I don't have any shame. People are very welcoming with the financial conversations around budgeting, around affordability, around savings, because they also know that there is a specific amount that you earn and there is a budget that you live on.
You just heard two of the several Gen Z youngsters that we spoke to for this episode. And well, it's very clear that they are dealing with money in a manner that millennials or the generations before that never did. At the start of our career, millennials had aspirations like buying a car or eventually a home. Gen Zers are looking at much shorter term goals as their primary goals. Think buying an iPhone.
At one end is the consumption bit. At other end is also the fact that the wages what you and I started at drawing when we started our careers, it's compared to people who start their career now, there isn't much growth that has happened. At the same time, we have been in a high inflation environment, right? So cost has gone up, and especially in metro and urban cities, some of the costs which are not even accounted in inflation index has really gone up. And plus there have been lifestyle changes, right? People want to go out and, have a drink with a friend or go out for a movie. So these are all normalized things. Creators economy, right? It's given rise to the fact that wages have not really caught up. Lot of the Gen Z's sort of the coming of age was during pandemic, right? And that was a once in a century kind of an event, and everything it has sort of changed the way we look at pandemic. In a way has changed the way we spend, we consume, right? For people across, right? Like, because this can happen when everything stops one day. For them, this is what they saw. And when a lot of them entered workforce, salaries have not really caught up. We at ET Prime have done a story, and this is not particularly to Gen Zs, but like across.
That was Alec Angre, my colleague and markets reporter of ET Prime. In the absence of growth in wages, the spending, especially on premium and luxury products, becomes a concerning matter. Because when you don't have the money to buy expensive things, you borrow. According to a report by an American credit score assessment company, Intuit Credit Karma, 27% of Americans doom spend to deal with stress. And this phenomena has now reached India. To understand how doom spending and loud budgeting is impacting Gen Z's personal finances, we decided to ask the questions directly to the experts. Our first guest today is Manish Maryada, founder of a fintech app called Fellow. Let's start with understanding how Gen Z is approaching their expenses and investments. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Manish. Could you tell us a little bit about Fellow? How did the idea come about?
Thanks a lot, Shiburi and Economics Times, for having me in this podcast. What we are building, how Gen Z patterns are looking like. I have been associated with the fintech ecosystem for the last 7 to 8 years. We have been running the business for good 1.5 to 2 years. And while now we are speaking, Fellow is an application with roughly 1.25 million users consuming it. And of this, we have 25% Gen Zs, and the remaining are a good split of millennials and people who are above 40 years as well. And during this entire journey, we were able to raise a capital of $5 million from Y Combinator Entrepreneur First Woodside Ventures. And today we're a team of 25 members.
How do you see Gen Z treating money?
So when we initially kicked off with our Fellow journey, we actually built for the Gen Zs, in all honesty. Gen Zs are more pro towards spending behavior, and they're very less towards saving. They want to save maybe for their short-term needs for 3 to 6 months, but we noticed that they're more glued towards spending rather than saving. Because if you see spending, it is more like a long-term gratification they get. For example, let's talk about the millennial and our parents' generation. They believe they'll invest today and reap benefits tomorrow. But the current generation of people, especially the Gen Zs, what we're seeing, that they want something immediately gratifying. And that is something which most of the applications have started catering if you want to sort of accept Gen Z's attention as well. And that is what we did.
One thing that comes to my mind when you were talking about spending and how the minute the salary comes to their account, they want to spend. It's very close to the doom spending phenomena. So could you tell us a little bit about doom spending habits? Where do the Indian current 20-somethings stand? And how is this phenomena shaping or developing in India?
In all honesty, I first heard about doom spending, I guess it was like 1.5 to 2 years ago. At least saw the pattern, and I did not know. So I'm not big time into Instagram and TikTok myself. But once I was speaking with my team, then they told that, hey, there's this term called doom spending, and this is a huge TikTok trend, which is going all along the sides of it. And when we saw what exactly is happening in the West, we noticed that in order to get instant gratification of the things, what they want, the Gen Zs are spending erratically. When I say erratically, what I mean is, say someone is getting a salary of, say, 1 lakh rupees a month. They want to sort of spend everything into the things what they need at the point of time. And in few cases, they are extending their boundaries as well. That is where ecosystems or products like buy now, pay later or credit cards have come into action, and they don't know what to do about it in the long run. So their salary with plus easy access to credit has given them this behavior trade of doom spending, where they're just spending on everything what they want. Some of the trends what we notice in the West and what's happening in India also is the first doom spending is happening into luxury items, let it be apparels or accessories, etc. The second thing what we're seeing it's in terms of gadgets, and third thing what we're seeing it's in terms of travel. Even it's some segments of even millennials are getting into this doom spending pattern, but if you see Gen Zs are the ones which are getting way more glued into this thing, and there's a reason associated with it as well. How exactly success is defined or how exactly settlement is defined for Gen Zs and young millennials. Through our consumer interviews, we found out this thing that they are associating owning a luxurious car or appearing much more visually acceptable into an ecosystem or the society has made them be inclined towards owning these items at a way younger age because they're getting that immediate gratification, immediate acceptance. But one thing which they're totally forgetting is you're getting into this zone by taking a huge credit, huge debt on your head without knowing how to sort of answer it.
And how is loud budgeting fitting in with this behavior?
What's happening is they're becoming much more aware that, hey, I've got into this loophole of doom spending. Now I have to get out of it. How to get out of it? Let me be vocally tell out my financial challenges, what I want to do in the next few years or months and start spending across it. Again, this became a huge sensation in recent times where people are very vocally talking about how their finances are going about, how exactly they want to spend, what they want to spend and how they want to invest. One of the pros, what I'm also seeing about the loud budgeting is these people are also telling no to things which they don't want because they've seen a phase where they spent on things which they have just extended their limits. And then they come to a phase that, oh, I've extended my limits. I've gone into a slight debt and tough situation. Let me not do it anymore. So that is how doom spending is slightly being in lines with loud budgeting right now. And those are two trends which I've just picked up very much loudly in the Gen Z ecosystem. In India, it is growing right now, in all honesty. If we speak about the statistics, at least 10 to 20% of the Gen Zs are glued into this doom spending behavior, and it is growing at a very, very erratic fashion as well. These are the stats which you're seeing, but in harsh reality, I feel that it is much more bigger than what the numbers speak right now as well. But the businesses, in order to make huge money, they're actually pushing this behavior of doom spending as well. It's a two-way thing what we're noticing at this point in time.
Okay. Do you think loud budgeting will save their doom spending habits? Will it combat the after effects of doom spending?
I see it's two ways, like first, there is loud budgeting, which is absolutely healthy. And secondly, there is loud budgeting, which is absolutely unhealthy. I'll tell you which loud budgeting is very, very healthy. You vocally telling out to the world that, hey, by the way, these are my challenges. And this is how I want some help in terms of saving, investing or spending. Help me out. That is very, very, very good. Secondly, when you're seeing a success in your budgeting patterns and telling it out to the world in order to educate them in a healthy way, that kind of another loud budgeting we are seeing. This is very, 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 great as well. Now I'll tell about the challenges associated with loud budgeting. A lot of people, especially, I have to blame the influencers also for this thing to some extent as well. Unfortunately, people see the top 10% of the influencers who actually made it big as well in healthy investing practices. Majority of them are still struggling out there. But people want to be aspirational and just focus on these biggest set of influencers made big in life. And or even within their close peers, when they vocally sort of say out that, hey, I'm saving this much, say I'm having a saving of 10 lakh rupees or 15 lakh rupees. What tends to happen is you start getting demotivated. You start seeing that, oh, am I not saving ample enough as to what my friend is he or she is saving, that demotivates them. They're also having a psychological effects out of this thing, saying that am I not good enough for how exactly the other peer in my age group is doing it as well. And I see loud budget to be a very, very good source for them to get into healthy finances in the long, but again, with utmost caution.
So it would seem while doom spending is a problem, loud budgeting is expected to reverse the impact of the same. Memes like plants are the new pets, or pets are the new children, or my personal favorite, should have invested in a home in early 2000s, can't believe I chose middle school over that, are definitely funny, but all point to the same challenge that the younger generation is facing. The rate at which things are becoming expensive is not the same as the rate at which they are earning. The result? A genuine lack of self-worth in case of monetary accomplishments in life. But all isn't gloom and doom. For every 2 Gen Zs doom spending their money away, there is one carefully planning their finances, investing in stocks, and avoiding debt traps. Most importantly, these youngsters aren't shy of abstaining from the impulsive buy. For them, loud budgeting is not the next stage in the guilt spiral after doom spending. It's more of a lifestyle in terms of managing resources well. And of course, greater financial awareness helps. Our next guest, Krishan Mishra, CEO of Financial Planning Standards Board India, tells us how Gen Z is actually doing things right. Welcome to the Morning Brief, Krishan. So let's start with a basic one, right? Like, how is Gen Z doing their financial planning? What is the basic difference between millennials and Gen Z's spending habits?
So one important thing which I found, Shaburi, is that Gen Z is smarter than us. Yeah, they are very smart. They have actually started prioritizing for their finances and their financial planning from a very young age only. In fact, if we look at some of the data which has come from various research reports, in fact, one of the new research which was carried out by Pew Research Center Survey in 2023 clearly mentioned that they actually plan to look at their financial success by the age of 43, which is quite young in itself. However, when we look at millennials or the Gen X, right, they aim to do so by the age of 54. So that's the biggest differentiator which is there. If we look at the millennials, yes, millennials definitely are doing that when it comes to paycheck to paycheck. Gen X has moved to 40s and they have realized it quite late that, okay, they need to plan for these things. And they have started doing that. However, there are a lot of debt-related aspects which are there with them. When it comes to the Gen Z, they're very clear that, okay, they would like to do it in advance. They start looking at their budgets on a regular basis. They keep on looking at what are their expenses. When it comes to taking a call that whether they should buy something or not, they take a very, very, I would say, a realistic call wherein they know that, okay, this is their financial situation. This is the way in which they're looking forward to their future. And then accordingly, they go ahead and spend. So their spending habits, their earning habits, as well as their risk management habits are slightly better than the millennials, I would say. They have also been very clear about how they would like to track the things. So they keep on tracking, reviewing, and revisiting their financial situation on a regular basis. They depend a lot on the digital era, wherein there are some people who influence them and their decisions get influenced because of that. They have got a very clear understanding on savings. They have got a clear understanding on investments. They are not really clear about how to prepare well for their emergency funds. And this is what we have seen. Emergency fund is something they will definitely look forward to doing that in times to come. I'm sure might not take much time for them to learn. So these people are very clear on adopting those habits and looking forward to their lives better.
Could you tell us what are the big milestone purchases for Gen Z? Like for millennials, we had goals like buying a car or a home. What are those goals for Gen Z?
I think the majority of the Gen Z, they're very clear that they would like to pay off their debt first. So what we found is that 44% of the Gen Z said that, yes, they would like to pay off their debt first. In fact, 55% wanted to prepare a budget and they actually keep on checking their budgets. And when we look at the investments, the 46% of the Gen Z are very clear about making investments in the market. And I would say that 47% of the Gen Z have started preparing for their retirement at a very young, which was not the case in the past.
How do you think doom spending is going to shape Gen Z's expenditure patterns?
When it comes to Gen Z, have been very clear on this thing that, yes, whether I should go ahead with buying an asset or not. I would say that 56% of the Gen Z in the recent research said that they would like to postpone their decision of going ahead with the asset at an early age. Instead of that, they would like to make an investment, which has been a better decision for them. And then the rest, obviously, they're going through the peer pressure and they take those calls. I'll tell you a very interesting fact that when we pass out from a business school today, and say, for example, we get a good job in any organization. Within a few days, we receive a credit card from a good bank. And what happens is before we have earned our first salary, we create a debt on ourselves. And the reality is that we take at least 15 to 20 precious years of our life in terms of repaying that debt. And that's the reason why we are not able to plan for our future investments or retirement or anything else, which is really very important. And when it comes to Gen Z, they say that, yes, they would like to use this as a very proactive tool for their benefit. In fact, a lot of the millennials, and especially the Gen X, I would say, realized it on a later date that I got into a trap and I need to come out of it. And then they started planning for the investments and retirement.
You mentioned several interesting points. So, Gen Z is clearly wiser about money, decides often to put off big purchases like houses and cars. And they don't want to get into the debt trap and would rather make investments. How is Gen Z financing its purchases then? Loans.
They take loans only when it is more necessary for them. They're not taking it for the sake of taking it. The second thing with Gen Z is that their Gen X or their parents, etc., have already gone through this particular cycle. They have already earned a good amount of money and they have cushion which is available at home, right? So whatever they earn, they are able to spend also. That's an opportunity to them. I would like to quote about one thing that before 2000 in 90s, we used to talk about salaries in thousands. Right?
Yeah.
When it came to 2000 to 2010, 2015, we started talking about salaries in lakhs. And today we are talking about salaries in crores. So incomes have increased. However, we have to remember one more thing that with the income, the inflation, as well as the cost of living has also gone up.
Yeah.
Right. And it is continuously increasing. It is continuously increasing. Gen Z has been able to understand that, yes, I cannot control the inflation. Cost of living is something which is not in my control. It has to go up with time. So I would like to save something for my future as well as take the debt whenever it is necessary.
You mentioned the credit card trap. Is Gen Z getting into that trap?
When we look at the number of credit cards, the number of credit cards have actually gone up in India. We have already touched around 78 million credit cards in the market, and we should be touching around 100 million, which is like a 10 crore mark very, very soon.
And this is in terms of number of cards in circulation.
Yes, that's right. However, when we look at the usage of the credit card, interestingly, when it comes to the millennials, they say that, okay, 36% to 40% of them, they actually use it once in a day. But when it comes to the Gen Z, they around 30% only do that on a daily basis. So which means there is a trend which is saying that, okay, there is a utility, but I will utilize it whenever it is needed.
Let's talk about savings and investments. How are these youngsters saving? What is Gen Z doing to save money?
Now, what happens to the Gen Z, they have started following a very good rule. And in fact, a lot of people always say that you need to follow this rule. The rule is 50, 30, 20. And when we say 50, 30, 20, it says that 50% should go towards your normal expenses, 30% towards your debt, and 20% has to be saved. And I would say that we are very close to that 20% right now. And we are looking forward to creating a savings tool for ourselves, whether in the form of a account-based saving or in terms of fixed deposits or maybe any other options which are giving us some fixed kind of returns, as well as going to the markets and then doing investments.
How much are millennials saving per check, per monthly check, if I may ask?
So they were slightly lower than that. The last report said that it was somewhere around 12% that was saving. And then it has changed now. We are moving towards the 20% mark very soon. And that's what the future looks like.
One more thing that comes to my mind is earlier you mentioned how Gen Z is getting its information about financial planning from, well, social media, TikTok being one of them, but not just TikTok, all kinds of social media, right? Is that concerning?
Interestingly, what has happened is, as you rightly mentioned, that there are so many influencers within the market and they come on the social media and talk to people. I'll quote a very good analogy here. Have you been to a sports ground ever? Have you been there?
Yeah, I have.
So when you're watching it on the television or whether you're watching it in the ground, you'll see a lot of people sitting next to you, telling you that, okay, if I would have been there in the position of this batsman, I would have played this shot better. Or if I would have been bowling, I would have done that better. But this guy never played cricket in his own life, right? And they will talk about so many things. Now, practically, the reality is that these influencers are like this only. They have never invested themselves, but they will go and tell people that you should go ahead and invest, right? Now, what happens is if you take the advice from these influencers directly, right, verbatim, then you will face a difficult time. And a lot of people have actually burned their hands, their fingers, and whatnot in their body because of believing on the influences, right? And I would say that we should not be believing them straight away. It's a very good idea for you to go ahead and talk to a certified professional, a certified financial planner professional, who can actually guide you in navigating your lives better, not by just giving you a particular transaction which can make you earn money.
According to a report by Home Credit India called How India Borrows 2023, 30% of the consumers have embraced online borrowing, and phone-based loan applications increased by 3% in 2023. When the entire ecosystem is available at your fingertips and quite literally enabling your bad habits, can you really blame the 20-something for caving in? Our experts believe that loud budgeting done correctly will combat the doom spending issues. But the truth is, while the latter may take care of the former, doom spending is a sign of a much deeper problem. And no, it's not instant gratification. In fact, all younger consumers operate leaning towards that. The deeper problem is the lack of growth in wages and lack of financial literacy. A section of Gen Z is at least trying to correct the lack of financial literacy head on. That's it from me, Shauburi Das. Thank you for listening to Decoding Doom Spending and Loud Budgeting, only on The Morning Brief. This episode was produced by Sumit Pandey and Surohini Jan. Sound editors Rajas Nayak. Executive producers Anupriya Nair, Anirban Chaudhary, and Arijit Barman. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, do share it on your social media networks. A new episode of the Morning Brief podcast drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. But now, even on Wednesdays, we are coming up with some special episodes. So watch the space for more. The Morning Brief streams on Amazon Prime Music, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, and of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Have a great weekend ahead. Goodbye and good luck. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.